5, and we are calling this the responsibility conversation. And I'll go into a little bit about that after we check in and we get into tonight's topic of conversation, which is getting right in the middle of spirituality and mental health, which we started talking about even before we started the recording. So same questions that we normally ask. How are you arriving? Which is basically, what is your general feeling tonight? And what are you bringing? And that is, what is your intention? And I will start. I am arriving feeling uh, joyful because there is a lot starting to intersect here. I had a conversation with Mimi the other night, and when we were discussing the question about community, what is going on with community? Why is there sometimes dissent around community? There was we discussed that sometimes it's difficult to discern at what point does a community seem like a cult, and that was something that came up in our Circle of Miracles conversation a couple of months ago. I'm hoping Michelle will join us because she can add a little bit more to that conversation as well. So there's joy in seeing that there's that intersection. Um, I'm also carrying a little bit of sadness because of that that perception or those misperceptions that sometimes happens when communication is not as open or as honest as it could be. That sometimes there are misperceptions of people's intentions. So I'm arriving with that joy over sadness, and I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation because I know that will help me start to untangle some of those wires. And yeah, my intention tonight is to just really hold the space for deeper honesty and deeper connection, and hope that is what is meant to be for tonight. So that's how I'm arriving and what I'm bringing, and I'm going to pass it to Ray. How are you arriving and what are you bringing?
Hi, everyone. So I'm arriving, feeling excited to talk to you all. I always feel like it's been too long in between. Um, and I also am feeling a little bit agitated from a conversation I had with my dad. I usually don't talk to him, and it was a text conversation, which is also not my favorite. I mean, I like written communication, but with him, I just think it's pointless. So I kind of feel I have that kind of on the back burner and it's there. It's kind of like in my body. So I'm feeling like ready to move that into like an engaging conversation in this space. So yeah, that's where I'm at. What was the second question?
Mhm.
What am I
What are,
bringing?
what are you bringing, which what I normally interpret as what is your intention for tonight, or what would you like to bring away from tonight?
I think just I'm bringing this sort of energy of more conversations and deepening now that we're in this space, in this not space, but like part of this part of the journey, I guess. Like where we're at, it feels like we've been going deeper. So that's exciting for me.
Great. And then you can pass it to Beth or Becky.
I will pass it to Beth.
Okay. Um, I'm coming in feeling relaxed and still working on healing. Becky, we were talking about this clergy convocation thing I did last week with 70 other pastors from around the state, and we did workshops and presentations around healing. So anyway, some stuff has come up for me regarding that recently, mostly in my personal life. But anyway, so I'm coming off of that, and I'm what's that phrase you used again? The second part.
What are you bringing?
What am I bringing?
Mhm.
A desire to learn. Thank you. Go for it, Becky.
Okay, you're up, Becky.
I'm arriving feeling pretty energetic today and bringing anticipation.
All right, very good, Becky. Thank you very much. And Yeah, before we kind of get into the theme of tonight, or the, why this is the responsibility conversation, let's talk a little bit first about what tonight's topic is, and that is where all of us, when we were asked, which one of the 6 action steps or which one of the 6 categories were you most interested in, and what came out as the top choice was this intersection between mental health and spirituality. So I wanted to ask everybody, we'll just kind of do a check-in and another check-in around that topic. What's alive for you around mental health, spirituality? When I talked to Mimi the other night, emotional awareness and emotional intelligence came up. So that's kind of part of this theme. But before I kind of weigh in on what the topic means to me, I would like to give someone else the opportunity to start off this second check-in about, is it important? Why is it important? And just what's alive for you around mental health and spirituality. So let anyone jump in who would like to jump in first.
Oh, okay. Don't everybody jump in all at once.
Go for it. But
Oh.
no, I mean, it requires a little reflection, so that's great. So go for
No,
it.
it's okay. I'm
Mhm,
good with that.
mhm.
I try to practice waiting a little, let other people go before me, but since nobody's jumping in right off the bat, I'm like, okay, I'll just go ahead. So anyway, the intersection of mental health and spirituality for me has been centered around listening for God and acting upon what I hear. And I have experienced tremendous healing. I'd say especially in my mental health because of this. Now, my therapist and my spiritual director are also super helpful in that. But if I had never been called to ministry, I probably never would have started therapy, and I would not be who I am today. There is
Mm,
no doubt. I did not know what self-awareness was when I started seminary. I'd never heard of emotional intelligence, so I had a long way to go. Um, and being in prayer, um, my former pastor was also super helpful because pretty much right off the bat, he said to me, uh, ask God to reveal to you the things you need to let go of. And even now, I tell my congregation all the time that this is a path to healing uh, in a spiritual sense. Uh, for me, that meant a lot of stuffed down feelings and situations that didn't really belong, but that maybe I felt ashamed about or guilty, and I felt like, well, I had to hold that in, like I deserved to be unhappy because of what I've done or what I've said. And I discovered that that's not what God wants for us. Um, this God wants us to be free of all that stuff. So sure enough, situation after situation popped up, and I would bring it to my pastor, and we would talk about it, and it took healing and crying and prayer and journaling and a lot of other things to bring this healing about. It wasn't like it just magically disappeared or anything, but I did experience a lot of healing and a lot of freedom from doing that. So I think prayer and my mental health when they just go together. So that's what that means to me.
Thank you, Beth. I want to give Becky or Ray an opportunity to receive what you had just offered there and reflect back what's alive for you or what resonates, or if you have a question for Beth. I'm going to give Becky or Ray the floor.
I'm curious about what it is that you experience through prayer that feels beneficial to your mental health. Like I'm imagining what possibilities could be, but I'm wondering what it could be for you.
Well, you know how it is when politicians say, "Oh, my thoughts and prayers are with so and so," and you feel like it's that's my dog, and you feel like it's just bullshit. That's that's a terrible thing, because it makes people think that thoughts and prayers mean nothing. But to me, when prayer is connected to action, that's when prayer really works. So for me, listening and acting on what I hear, even when I'm afraid, which is a lot, because God sometimes will tell you things that feel frightening or difficult, but and sometimes I would resist and say, "Yep, God, no, I don't want to do that," and God would push and push. uh, Baby, oh my goodness. But anyway, it was always for my own good. And once I figured that out, once I got through the hard work and I felt so much better, then I was like, God was right again. And then it made me trust a little bit more and a little bit more. I mean, it's not easy. I tell my congregation all the time, this is not easy work. It forces you to look at the things that need to be healed. And that's really the hard part, is looking at it, processing things, and then figuring out how to let things go. Did that answer your question, Ray?
I think so. I think what I heard is that it deepens your trust, which to me, because of my understanding of mental health and a lot of the major issues today, that trust and a sense of safety is like huge, like really foundational. And so
It really is.
right, if that prayer relationship is helping you to feel a sense of trust in something bigger, then yeah, that's what I was listening for. So thank you.
Yeah, what's
Thank
really
you, Ray.
alive for me, yeah, what's really alive for me as well too, Beth, is that trust, and establishing that trust takes time, whether it's trust in God, or trust in each other, or trusting, trusting that there is there is even healing taking place. I have found that, it's that trust that really takes it really does take an opening up or a spiritual understanding to do that hard work. And you're right, it is very hard work. If it wasn't hard, everybody would be doing it, and we'd be having more conversations like this, I think. But
Right.
yeah, yeah. All right. Anyone else like to add now? What is alive for you about this specific topic, the intersection of mental health and spirituality? Just what comes up for you off the top of your head. That's been your experience with it.
Becky, do you have anything? I feel like I don't want to jump too quickly if you have something, but I will go if you would rather go after. Okay. So, it's interesting because as Beth was speaking, I was just kind of reflecting on my own like interpretations, and I am a universalist. So I just think that every religion is a different language to talk about the same thing. And so as I'm hearing, I'm like, okay, so it's essentially no matter what your spiritual practice is, when you're praying, you might be actually meditating or tuning into yourself, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, and trusting that intuition. And the one mental health issue that I've noticed most alive in my life is anxiety. I see it in children a lot in early childhood, working as a teacher. I see it in myself and my friends, and like it's basically just so pervasive that it's almost just normal at this point. And I've often thought maybe it's because we live in the DC metro area and there's so much traffic and just people that we don't know, that we don't have relationships with. Maybe if we lived in small communities with like 100 people where we knew everybody's name, we would feel safe and we wouldn't feel that kind of anxiety. But I've realized that really that feeling of safety and trust comes from inside of us, because it's not about what's going to happen. Because of course, no matter what era humans lived in, things happened to them that were not pleasant, or surprising, or devastating. So it really comes down to trusting that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay. And also accepting that, you know, the things that I feel that I'm attached to are not permanent, and that has to feel okay. But I think people sometimes don't realize that. And I think that spirituality, no matter what path you're on, leads you down this path of surrender and like letting go and trusting, whether it's the non-attachment of Buddhism or the surrender to Jesus or whatever, whatever language we're using, it's kind of the same thing. So that's where my mind goes.
Open the floor up to any kind of reflections or clarifying questions for Ray. One thing that's really alive for me is that metaphor of using different pathways as languages. That has always resonated with me, and it's a metaphor that I've used as well too. So that's very alive for me. I wanted to reflect that back. How are you? How has your growth with this anxiety been for you, Ray? How have you? Yeah, how do you feel? How do you feel you have grown through this experience, as far as the anxiety that you have been working with?
I would say that it definitely took some inner work and reflection to recognize that I had anxiety. Um, I I think that because of the way I was raised in particular, mental health was never something that was, a light wasn't really shined on it. It was considered like not really okay, like there was something wrong with you.
Mhm.
And so I think my instinct was to just avoid it and, try to like, I think that I intellectualize things a lot. And so
Mhm.
thinking about it in terms of what I was talking about is really easy for me. But what has been more difficult is the somatic part of it, where, it's not just in your mind that you're building this sort of abstract trust in an abstract, spiritual truth. It's like, am I existing in the world with like this feeling of like, you know, oh, this like tension of anxiety, right? And that part has been tricky. It's been really tricky because I think it's not something you can imagine away or think away, no matter what your beliefs are. It's like
Yeah.
you can think and believe all the right things, and your body still needs to be healed
Mm.
on a physical level, right?
Mhm.
And so even like what Beth was talking about with the maze is like a physical experience, right? And that can have such a profound effect versus like even, any kind of other spiritual practice that's more in the mind.
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, I think that the Western cultures tend to emphasize intellectual exercise, even when
Yeah.
it comes to spirituality. And so what I think that I'm moving in the direction of like, let's figure out this somatic piece, maybe dance
Mm.
or, you
Mm.
know, some kind of movement would be where I would go with it.
Very good. Very good. Any other reflections or clarifying questions for Ray? All right, I'll go next. What's really alive for me with this is that I often feel that relationships and interpersonal connection can heal the body through honest communication. Um, one of the things that I'm working with at the moment is I am a part of a group called The Bridge, where we we do a lot of work with suicide survivors and bullying. And we're at a point now where we've had a little bit of success. We've made a little bit of money doing this work in schools. We just did a workshop with the police a couple of weeks ago in New Jersey, And we've done a lot of mental health. We've done a lot of work in mental health communities. And we're at the point where my life and path wants me to bring this work into spiritual communities and be able to hold deeper conversations and have the mental health clinicians in on the same conversations as clergy or people who have deep spiritual experiences. And there's a little bit of resistance there. What the bridge is going through right now is they're working on their marketing, they're working on their positioning and their outreach, and I pretty much just gave them permission to do whatever they want with it, and I'll rejoin the group after they figured that out, because I want to bring this back into the spiritual conversations, the power alignment between people of different spiritual experiences, people who are in different spiritual faiths. So the way that's showing up for me is that I've been asked to be president of the Circle of Miracles, and Michelle, I was really hoping Michelle would be here tonight because she had stepped down from that position, and part of what kind of opened that conversation up was about how when Circle of Miracles was created, it was created as a landmark education project. And if you know anything about landmark education, there's been some accusations of it being a cult and using cult-like tactics. And when I heard that, I was like, that's great. Let's really talk about that. Let's really, really talk about that and the mental health effects about why that's coming up. And what that did was it kind of created a rift because, the old guard did not want to talk about that. And they saw it as a personal attack. And the other faction was kind of took offense to the fact that the other side took offense. And then everybody's personal stuff started bumping up against each other. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is not the time to disengage and ignore the work we've done. This is now the time where we really need to get together and talk about and separate out the facts from the feelings, from the judgment, because that's what is really alive as far as the mental health work is for me. And that's the work we do in the bridge. So it's kind of like there's these energies kind of separating out. And I'm holding on to the desire of bringing everybody back in to really have that deep conversation, even though it might be uncomfortable, even though it might mean taking responsibility for some of the ways we're judging or accusing people. But yeah, so that's where I'm at the moment, because my healing project for the next 2 years is a healing of community through the written and spoken word. And what I would really like to do is establish a theater, kind of like a theater company or an in-house theater company, who have these difficult conversations and create new works of theater to present and open up even more conversation. So that's where I'm at with this and why it's important to me, especially tonight. And that's it. That's it. So welcome, Kylie. What we're doing is we're just doing a second check-in about tonight's topic, which is the intersection of mental health and spirituality.
Yeah.
And I will open the floor up for reflections or anything you want to mirror back that you heard, or any clarifying questions about why this is important to me. No. Okay.
I know
Oh, go ahead, Kylie.
But it sounded like you were saying, like, in the situation that you're dealing with, it was kind of like the old guard wasn't responding well to some of like the comments and things coming from the new guard, which then kind of got the new guard to get their hackles up, and then it was kind of just like two jackals howling at each other instead of like hearing each other. It's been really interesting for me this week because those are some themes I've had to tackle myself in just different situations. And I've
Mhm.
noticed that a lot of people around me have been tackling similar stuff. And
Mhm.
so I find that very interesting. And it seems to be like a collective thing happening over the last little bit as well, which is, it's just always kind of interesting to see how like we really are like a fractal system, how
Yeah.
like on the bigger microcosm, it always somehow ends up playing out in some way on like the smaller ones too.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah. And being able to bring those two sides of the polarity together, to really be in that discomfort and to kind of identify exactly what are you feeling, let those feelings, express themselves without directing it at somebody or having violent communication, and really separating out from, okay, this was the judgment I made. I'm going to take responsibility for that judgment, and then that's where it gets really difficult to get to the facts. Now, what were the facts? And as I've been trying to facilitate conversations around this and trying to get others to remember, well, what did actually happen? What was actually said? What was actually done? That's just not there. That information is just not available. But when we can, and on the rare incidents where we can get inside the feelings and get inside the judgments and the stories, then the facts start to come out a little bit. But yeah, but that's the challenging portion, is just getting people into the space where they can be with that discomfort and take responsibility for their own stories and judgments.
I have a couple of questions about this for you.
Mhm.
The first one was sort of, maybe I missed it, but
Mhm.
what was your goal in kind of bringing this to light and bringing and starting that conversation between these two,
Mhm.
the people who are like, this is a cult, and the people who are like, no, it's not.
Well, it was what emerged, Ray. My goal was to just get people together and really start talking about, what were their real experiences, and taking responsibility. But what had happened was that when there was a safe enough environment, people, like one person felt safe in sharing this information. Unfortunately, the other person that information pertained to couldn't be there for the rest of the day. So then, kind of started this triangulation thing again, where it felt like, it felt like there were cliques, talking to each other, but that really wasn't the case at all. It was really just that one person felt safe enough to bring this information to light, and the other person just simply wasn't there at the time that information was revealed. So getting everybody at the same place at the same time to really get inside the context of it was I think needed. So my goal was really just to create a safe space where everybody felt like they can be real with each other, and just because life gets in the way, and that not everybody was present for when the sensitive information was revealed, was when kind of things started to, unravel a little bit.
Mhm. My second question was more wonder, I'm just curious if you were feeling disappointed or frustrated about how things went, or if it's still something that you feel hopeful about in the
I
future.
feel very hopeful about it because we completed a matrix project with Circle of Miracles, and the information that came to light that I'm trying to help others come back to the table to look at is that the values we came up with was, does everybody feel respected, and does everybody feel valued? On the surface, everybody felt respected, meaning, everybody was really good at kind of playing the role of being respectful and being the mature spiritual one. But when it came to the truth about feeling valued, that's when it scored very low. And it's just like, oh, we have work to do in really helping everybody in the room to feel valued. And that was the big reveal. So I am very hopeful because I can see where the work needs to be done, and it's just kind of being gentle and providing a safe enough environment to bring everyone back to the table.
Thank you.
All right. So Beth and Ray already checked in with this, but why don't we just do we just go back to our normal check-in questions for you, Kylia. How are you arriving today? So that's basically, what are you feeling, and what are you bringing? What is your intention for tonight?
I'm feeling a little disoriented.
Sure.
Mondays are my no people days.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, okay.
so like I talked to my life coach, but that's like first thing in the morning. And then literally the rest of the day, like I go dark. Like I have literally no human contact of any kind. Cause
Mhm.
I realized a little while back that I'm a pretty like introverted, like need my space type of human being. Like I'm like literally that person who could actually genuinely be alone for 3 months and like not
Mhm.
talk to anyone on a consistent basis and
Yeah.
be completely fine. Like it has no negative effect on my psyche at all. Um, and I've recently made a new group of friends who, like, from basically July of last year until just recently, there wasn't a moment where I wasn't either with them or in contact with them,
Mm. Mm.
which then led to like a mental explosion for me.
Sure. Yeah.
I've
And when
started,
you're an introvert, especially, I understand that.
and I went from like almost 8 months being completely by myself to then suddenly inundated with human beings.
Wow. Mm.
Almost 24/7. And it's not bad. They're the most wonderful human beings in the world. And I don't know what I would do without them, but like, it was
Mhm.
like, whoa. So I'm a little disoriented because like I've been in my own world like all
Mhm.
day, especially because today's moon day. So it's a really good day for like doing domestic stuff and house chores. And so I've been like cleaning all day. And then I like
Mhm.
looked at the time and I was like, oh crap. My intention for tonight,
Mhm.
I would say my intention is to come with curiosity and openness and just sort of observe, because I find in each session there's always these like little nuggets or things that like I just wasn't expecting that kind of just like pop up, and it sometimes doesn't hit me till after. And then I've realized that there's moments where I kind of just, especially because like ADHD is a real thing for me, I just kind of float away. So I want to try to be like very, very present and in the moment and see if I can catch the little nuggets as they're happening instead of like later reflection.